Support for Audacious with Chion Wolf provided by a generous contribution from Suzanne Hopgood in memory of Frank Lord.
From Connecticut Public Radio in Hartford, this is Audacious. I'm Chion Wolf. Sometimes, the only way to understand yourself is to pick up something sharp, to carve away what isn't true anymore. That's what poet and artist Zulynette did. She's a queer Puerto Rican woman who learned early how to shapeshift, how to smooth her edges, change her colors, become whoever the room required to stay safe. Until she started to see her own light, and then used poetry and art to explore all the ways it shines. Her third book, Becoming a Soft Woman with a Machete, is a collection of poems that feel like prayers 1 minute, therapy sessions the next, and at times, a stand-up routine. She writes about what it means to be a person trying to heal, trying to stay honest, and trying to still laugh, even when life feels like it's testing every single nerve you've got. Know the feeling? Yeah, me too. Let's start with Zulynette reading the very first poem from her new book. It's called Creation Prayer.
She told me to pray in LA, to clasp my hands and drop to my knees, sending hopes and dreams to a mystery man I'm supposed to love without the sort of relationship that makes a relationship. I might as well ironically call him Dad. She doesn't understand that when I push paint on canvas with round-tipped brushes, I'm praying. When I say it to rhyming and memorizing and sacrifice structure at the altar of creation for the sake of saving the simple truth from suffocating, I'm praying. When I sprint to my pen and paper, my pulse running its own marathon with inspiration in pursuit of turning intangible to tangible, from obscure into words, I'm praying. Every eraser mark, every touch of heavy body acrylics and blending medium, all the staring at a blank page and gallery-wrapped canvas is communion with God. When the zone is entered and everything inside goes quiet for once, where my existence only depends on the color choice or synonym or perfectly curved line as opposed to the goal of man-prescribed holy perfection, and I haven't eaten for 18 hours, I'm fasting and praying. When my baptism waters are muddied with paint and pencil shavings and still cleaner than most, and with mere words I can convince community to alchemize grief into medicine, I'm praying. Smeared ink in unlined journals serve as confessions, going face to face not with a priest but myself. Even if I'm not forgiven, I am unburdened. My craft gives me sanctuary without demanding penitence. Nobody's son had to die for this painting or poem. Mercy is given to all mistakes and are, in fact, encouraged. Without payment, the doors of this church remain open. And so here is where I pray.
Thank you. When you create as an act of prayer, how does that blur or define the line between the big C creator and you? Or is there no line?
Oh, I think there is no real line. I don't see us separate from the source. We are the source expressing itself. So in us expressing ourselves, we're just tapping into that. We are just breathing new life into it, but it's all connected to me.
So it sounds like you're saying that there is more than a creation, or in addition to creation, maybe also a kind of channeling?
Yeah. I think it's a sort of becoming in tune with it's prayer in action. I think it's meditation in action, the manifestation of things that we have inside, things that are floating in the air around us, because no ideas are new. And so inspiration is as old as time itself. And I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as a thing to honor, that this has come before me and it will last long after me. And I have the privilege of tapping into it and pulling some of it out of the ether and being like, this is how I want to share it with other people. It'll be through paintings, through words, through facilitation, through performance. This is how I can funnel it out into the world.
Will you talk to me about the title of your new book, Becoming a Soft Woman with a Machete?
I created a newsletter on Substack called Becoming a Soft Woman with a Sword, because that's sort of reflective of where I am in my life right now. And I've been going to therapy again, to couples therapy with my partner. I am living in a brand new state. I am making new friends. I am in a different vulnerable place while also being in the safest place I've ever been in my life. And so it created this room to be softer, to sort of revisit parts of me that I had to harden over time, unfortunately, and see who it is that I am beneath all of the armor. I've also been in the process of reconnecting to my indigeneity, to Boriquen, aka Puerto Rico, and learning more about my culture, my history, my family history. And the machete is a symbol of resistance. It is a symbol of independence for the island. And so, to honor that part of my journey as well, I decided that instead of becoming a soft woman with a sword, I am becoming a soft woman with a machete.
There's also something really powerful about that word, machete. There's something visceral about it. Almost the word itself cuts, right?
Yes, I love it so hard. And in a way, it sort of honors my mom too. Her I went to visit her recently and she's like, why is that my caller ID photo? But it's a picture of her. My parents recently moved back to the island and after my stepfather retired, and there's a photo of her with a machete in her hand. She doesn't know I took it because it was on FaceTime, but I was screenshotting her because she just looked so badass. And she was outside and, out in her, she was gardening with her machete in hand. And there's a photo of me from years ago when I had visited the island prior, and same thing, machete in my hand, because every time we go there, we toil the land because it's a dual thing. Obviously it's a tool for farming, but it is also a symbol of resistance. And I just, all that meaning behind that one symbol, I was like, that is more culturally relevant to me and that has way more meaning to me. And so, yeah, became part of the name of the book.
As I was preparing to have this conversation with you, of course, I read your entire book and I made note of poems that really stood out to me that I wanted to hopefully get you to read today. And I noticed that the ones that called to me were the ones that felt like warrior poems, that had some sort of edge or some sort of no more. Or I'm going to point this out and you're not going to like it, but you're going to hear this.
Mhm.
Any of those float to your surface that you'd like to read right now?
There's one in particular that does come to surface. It's called Witchcraft Light. I know a lot of beautiful, amazing, wonderful folks who also identify as Christian, and I just have questions because when there's talk about things that are different, it's usually deemed witchcraft, but bad. And so I had to ask, how exactly are y'all defining witchcraft? Because ritualistically gathering with other people who share the same beliefs as you, almost coven like, sounds pretty witchy to me. Eating the body of your Lord and Savior sounds pretty witchy to me. Drinking the blood of your Lord and Savior sounds pretty witchy to me. Dunking your children or yourself in water to initiate yourself into your faith or coven sounds pretty witchy to me. The passing down of Bibles, much like grimoires and recipe books, sounds pretty witchy to me. Singing and dancing in ecstasy for a power greater than yourself sounds pretty witchy to me. Praying to an entity, always a dude, that you can't physically see in the room sounds pretty witchy to me. See, if what you're saying is that any belief system that centers women or is led by women is witchcraft but bad, I'm going to need you to unpack that. Because if you're partaking in a religion that tells you you shouldn't worry about this world or this lifetime because paradise is promised to you after you die, that you shouldn't concern yourself with how billionaires are exploiting humans or trying to destroy the earth, that you shouldn't bother advocating for people different than you because this is all temporary, I'm going to need you to unpack that. Because if your problem is with any belief system that believes in or even worships the sanctity of the relationship we have with the earth, the physical world, then I'm going to need you to unpack that. Because if you're part of any group, I don't care if it's astrology or Christianity, where they say in subtle and overt ways that they are better than more worthy than, more important than, more deserving of rights, more holy than, more saved than any other group of people? I'm going to need you to unpack that. Because if your belief system is setting you apart from other human beings to the point of isolation, I'm going to need to remind you that one tactic of an abuser is to isolate the abused from people around them, from support systems, from people who say, hey, what's happening isn't okay, from people who challenge what you think is normal or even right. So I'm going to need you to unpack that. Because if you're someone talking about freedom, liberation, and or healing generational trauma, how are you sidestepping the fact that Christianity was a tool of colonization? Why is this the area you're avoiding as opposed to acknowledging that this too was forced upon many of us, that it may be harmful? I'm going to need you to unpack that. These are all the questions. What have you cut yourself off from by auto-believing what was handed to you? What does having an image of the Wicked Witch being associated with witchcraft do to your psyche when it comes to women, to grandmamas and their knowledge, to healers and their natural medicines? Who benefits from you paying weekly tithes to something with such an abusive history? Who benefits from perpetuating the ignorant messages of witches, root workers, shamans, etc., and what they do, who they actually are? Plot twist, a lot of your grandmas and aunties are witches, root workers, shamans, etc. How much are you allowed to ask questions that aren't answered with vagueness or a mysterious plan? How does your belief system prioritize your connection to the earth you live on and to the other beings you share the earth with? How does having a relationship to an authoritative and punitive God reinforce how militaristic and punitive the country we live in gets to be? And how far does your belief system allow your empathy to extend?
Thank you. Now, as you're reading this, my heart is racing and I'm nodding along to a lot of it. And I'm thinking there's a lot of people who are doing the same thing. And then I wonder, what about the people who are listening to you? And they're like, oh, how dare she? That's not. How do you hope people who are not nodding along take that poem? What do you hope they do with it?
I hope they ask good questions. I know that's how it started for me. And I remember very specifically where it started, which is what I was maybe 8 years old. And I asked my mom if God was a man or a woman, because he's always talked about as he, but also talked about as like this big spiritual, not actually in a body sort of being. And so I was like, okay, so can God be a woman then? She was like, no. And I was like, doesn't line up for me. And then the second question I had asked her was like, first of all, why was I asking this at 8 years old? But I was like, okay, hold on. You said God can always predict the future. And if he can, why did he let certain things that happen in the Bible happen? And she was like, mysterious plan. And at 8 years old, I was very unsatisfied with that answer, but I didn't have the verbiage to question it further. But I hope it sparks curiosity in people. I don't necessarily have an issue with what it is that people believe in. I take great issue with what it is that they do with it and how it is that they impose it on other people. You can believe in anything you want. Love that for you. I know I do. You should too. But I want people to consider the ramifications of that. I want people to consider what it means that currently we are in a nation that is pushing people to be cis, to be white, to be male, to be Christian. That one is in there too. Why do you think that is? What does that do to other people that are not? What is the message that is being spread to people that are not, that don't identify as? I want people to get much more curious and to think much more critically about what it is that they believe in.
I wonder which of the poems in this book birthed themselves. Because I know some of them didn't. Some of them maybe it started off as one thing, ended up as something else, edited. But I wonder which of your poems birthed itself.
Koki Koki probably birthed itself, also coming from a place of fury.
And I just want to add, when I read Koki Koki, I didn't know exactly what it was referring to in terms of what it was addressing. I know about coquis. They are like the animal of Puerto Rico. And there's a headline in El País that says Puerto Ricans denounce that American tourists are trying to silence the song of the coquí, the island's endemic and endangered frog. And then I read your poem again and felt it. I'd love to hear it.
So it was very much inspired by exactly that, unfortunately. Si no te gusta, vete. This song is ancient. This whistling that calls the night and calls us back to each other wasn't meant for your tourist tantrums. This music has lulled generations to sleep, reminding them they are home and exactly where they are supposed to be. This culture is our commonwealth. Y no se vende. If you don't appreciate being drowned by the sound of this island's chorus, there's plenty of ocean for you to go jump into, plenty of waves to take you far away from this place and its disruptive noise. Instead, you come here unwanted. ¿Quién carajo te invitó? It isn't enough for you to colonize an island. You now seek to colonize her voice, threatened by a 2-inch amphibian. You share ways online to poison our lullaby when this song will outlast you. Resistance has never been silenced, and it won't start now. May the Coquí's song haunt your dreams. May you never sleep because of it. May it send you back to where you belong. May it remind you we'll always be here.
Some of this book is illustrated. You illustrated this with a coquí with 3 megaphones in front of it.
Yes, I did. I was just so furious. The coquí is basically like our mascot. It's this little teeny tiny frog that makes that whistling sound I did at the end of the poem. It is named onomatopoeically after the sound that it makes. And some folks online were talking about visiting the island and talking about ways to poison the coquís. So because they found their whistling, their singing annoying. And yeah, it was awful, and people were just losing their minds over it, as they should, because what a lack of respect, honestly, especially with the island still recovering from Hurricane Maria in 2017, I believe. And this was yet another case of like why sometimes people will gatekeep, because it's to protect, it's to take care of, and if you can't respect a place, don't visit. You are not welcome. Thank you.
May the coquí's song haunt your dreams.
Please. I hope you go back to wherever you're from and still hear the whistling.
That was poet and artist Zulynette. When we get back.
How do you know who you are when you've had to be so many different people to survive?
That's a good question. One of many we'll carve apart, and you'll be treated, and I mean treated, to some more great poetry. I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay with me. This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf. I'm welcoming back to the show poet and artist Zulynette. She joined us back in 2022 to celebrate her book, Seeing in the Dark. And today we're exploring her new book, Becoming a Soft Woman with a Machete. Before the break, we were talking about how making art can feel like praying, how you can channel something bigger than yourself when you stop trying to sound so perfect and put together all the time. Now we're getting into what happens after that, when you share your truth out loud, what it heals, and what it's like to make people laugh even while you're cutting deep. Back to our conversation. You have one of my favorite laughs of all time, of all 8.3 billion people on the planet. I checked, and yours is one of my favorite laughs. I wonder which of these poems made you laugh the most?
It's not the poem itself. It's the ending of one of the poems that made me laugh. It's the piece called After 4 Years, She Called Me Fat.
Let's hear it.
Oh boy. It wasn't a question or a conversation to be expanded upon. Just a fact that thickly lingered between the two of us, your smaller body with paper thin skin, the veins in your legs painfully bulging. You complained about the newly forming problems in your knees as you reached for your walker. Walking into your arms, my mom told me to be careful when hugging you, your tiny frame potentially crushing underneath my ample one. Not a word exchanged in 4 years, and if they were to inquire about the years prior, I would tell them I didn't seek you out much like you did or didn't do with me. I could excuse it away with the sheer number of grandchildren and great grandchildren you have, but the fact was and is, I never felt loved by you. And yet here we were. I said bendición and you said que Dios te bendiga, a script we both fit into despite our clashing sizes. As I turned to go see what the others were up to, you said, Estás gorda, you're fat. Despite new healing and redefinitions of fatness and beauty and health, old wounds heaved and scars started to glow as I brushed it off with a joke. Something about always having been fat and never being cold. I'm reminded I became cold for reasons like this unwanted commentary on my body, bodying my self esteem without inquiry about my life or care for my fragility, fragile, from the generational self hatred that I still salsa and merengue with my body, being presented as a problem that needs to be solved. Has she said things like this to you before, like when you were little? I'm sure she has, but I can't remember. It's a memory felt in my cells overlaid with static. Something young, unprotected, and small in me trembled. I'm not a granddaughter who is sought after. After 4 years, you're fat. I wish there was more to say, that more was said, but that was all there was. And I, still performatively respectful granddaughter that I am, who shows up out of guilt and obligation, didn't turn around and say the things I wanted to. I kept the poison-tipped arrows in the quiver, quivering as I laid them outside of your house. Bendición. Que Dios te bendiga. Leaving feeling as empty as our interaction despite my apparently too large size. Knowing in these bones that carry you in them, this will be the last time I see you. One less bendición. Alternate ending, I hope your knees give out. So there's that.
When your body reads that, how does your body feel?
During certain parts of it, it feels tight. It feels, my heart starts racing a little bit with some anger, some disappointment, some sadness. There's a larger part of me that feels angry in a very protective way because this is something that's been happening since I was a child. And so it's very like protective of that kid. And then there is a part of me that feels very steady and very grounded in like, I'm in a place where I don't feel like I owe you anything anymore. And so like, it's fine. Like, this is fine. That this is our, at least on my end, if it's up to me, this is going to be our last interaction, because why am I here? For what? For whomst? It ain't benefiting either of us. So yeah, there's a lot of things that happen in the body, but a lot of it has come to the point of like, I feel very steady. Steady is the word that comes to mind.
I wonder, when you publish a book that contains both a lot of joy and satisfaction and a lot of pain, I wonder if there's any concern about hurting anybody else or riling up feelings of torment or pain in other people. I don't know. Have you thought about what this might do to people?
My family's Catholic background ensures that I always have just a little bit of that. We're riding on the line of guilt sometimes. But I am trying to be authentic and invite authenticity into my life, and so that's what I need to express. And I don't necessarily have to do it in a cruel way, despite me, alternate ending, breaking my grandma's hips or hoping that her knees give out. um, but even that in and of itself, like, that's an authentic feeling. Like, I'm expressing that I'm feeling hurt and that I can sometimes be a petty person. And so I want to be authentic in that and invite other people to be authentic with me. And I do have worry. I mean, since I started writing poetry, I have been worried about when I write pieces about men, for example, and patriarchy, I'm worried about my man friends being like, oh, do you not like me? Like, did I do something to you, or taking it personally? I've written pieces about my mom, and I'm like, the first piece I ever wrote about my mom, I felt extremely guilty about it. It felt like betrayal because I have gotten the messages that I know a lot of folks have gotten from their parents, which is like, I raised you, I took care of you, like you never needed for anything. And I'm like, yes. And I have truth in me that is different from your truth. And I need to express that for me and my mental health and my well being. And if you want to have a conversation about that, we can, unless it's destructive and abusive, in which case you gonna take that L and keep it pushing. I don't know what to tell you. But I very much do worry about that. But I'm more concerned with taking up space while I'm here. I'm more concerned with expressing truth, including hard truths, while I'm here. I am more concerned with exploring what it is that's happening with me and this interaction and this relationship with other people, because it's the only perspective I've got that's going to last from day one till the end.
Right. I guess that's the eternal plight of any sort of expression, right? And as you're talking, I can feel myself sweating a little bit when I think about the times where I bring up the very personal issues that I've had in my life. And every time I do it, even years later, I still get a little sweaty, and I don't want to hurt anybody. I really don't want to hurt anybody. But I know it's important to talk about it. And when I look back at other people who've talked about the difficult things they've been through, it's because they talked about it that I feel connected, that I feel less alone, that I feel like I have some direction in terms of where I can go next. And so while I feel that fear, because I really don't want to hurt anybody by talking about this, I also know that it can help other people. Also, imagine if every person who created anything thought, oh, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want them to take it the wrong way.
Especially as a woman, because I know that is something that has been ingrained in me. And then with like Latino culture, which is there's a lot of culture of silence. I know what it is that I'm pushing up against. So when I run up against that feeling, I'm like, am I actually harming someone, or am I just telling the truth of what happened?
Yeah. And I think in some ways that helps focus how you tell the tale. Like, you talk about what you went through. You don't necessarily need to make moral judgments on someone else. You can let their actions do that for them. But when you're speaking for yourself from your own perspective and telling your own story, what can they say?
Yeah. Also, I don't like to give a lot of people like personal play. Like, there's very much personal pieces around like family members that I will specifically say who is who. But like outside of that, like, you ain't paying me to feature you in my book. Why am I gonna? This is gonna be a little obscure. But yes, to the question, which is like, yeah, I do feel some fear. I do feel some worry about hurting feelings, about like sometimes I'm even like gaslighting myself. Like, did that actually happen that way? Was that actually said to me? Did I experience that? And it's like, well, my body says it does. My memory, sometimes what I have of my memory says it does. And so that feels like truth to me. So I'm going to lean into that, and we will figure it out as we go. And what I have learned with getting older is that sometimes it does shift the perspective. There was a time where I wrote about certain people in my family from a certain perspective, like especially my mom, from a certain perspective of like, oh man, we got a lot of work to do. And now there's at least definitely one piece in here that it's like, I see you are a complex human being who is not just my mother, and I honor that, and I love you. And we may not be besties, and that's okay. You're still my mom, and we will figure this out, or we won't figure this out, and that's okay. So just seeing like the humanity of people outside of these titles that we have given them.
It's one thing for me to read this book. I hear your voice because I know your voice, but then I hear mine reading your words in my head, right? Which is a sweet sort of intimacy. It's like you're in there with me and we're dancing, you know? But these are stories that are not mine completely, right? So I both feel closer to you and also on the outside of you and also closer to you. And it's this wonderful dance. And there's another thing for you to read these poems out loud and hear you read them. And I wonder which one in Becoming a Soft Woman with a Machete makes your heart race to read.
I think it's 1001. I'm a million different people from one day to the next. How do you know who you are when you've had to be so many different people to survive? It's people pleasing on 1,000. Actually, is it people pleasing if you've never had the chance to identify your needs so that you can then disregard them? How do you know how to behave around other people without taking on their traits? For my mom, I had to be a good reflection on her. There was an ever present invisible audience, sometimes called God, sometimes called the neighbors we never talked to, sometimes the family we didn't get along with, judging my actions. When she discovered I was queer, one of the first things she said to me is, "They're making fun of you." The almighty they. I was expected to uphold all expectations. My achievements would make me lovable. I'd be compared to my siblings who were often deemed troublesome or a problem, so I learned to appease my parents or parent, depending on their status, by being good. It made me very afraid and judgmental and small minded about a lot of things, especially myself. For my dad, I had to be a bottomless well of unconditional and unquestioning love. Even when he left for months for work or left for months because he split from my mom, when he'd come back, I had to be nothing but loving. My anger, sadness, or resentment had to quickly be gotten over. When I received the small gifts when he returned, I had to be grateful that at least he was there, even when his presence was stolen away by a bottle. This should be enough. For my brother, I had to be an ally, siding with him against the women in our family being condescending, never stepping in to question his blatant misogyny, lest I be the next target. I learned to admire him, even wanting to be like him in many ways. He was charming, funny, I think, tinkerer, a ladies' man. He also happened to be cruel. I learned to have a cruel side. I still have a very cruel side. He would disappear just like my dad. I thought we were close. I was expected to never have expectations of him. I was always hurt. For my sister, I had to be a useful ghost. Even as a child, I had to be willing to babysit her child as she went out to make up for her youth. Our time spent together was an appetizer to the inevitable buffet of favors she would ask for. I could be in a room with her, helping her with something, bringing the kids back from an outing as she cried, screaming, in front of her kids, of course, that no one helps her. She was the beautiful one, always in the latest fashion with men lining down the block to be in her presence. I wanted to be as beautiful as her, to have whatever essence she had that kept men under her thumb. We moved one too many times by the time I was 11. School was a playground to become a chameleon. Depending on where I lived and who my peers were, I tried to shave the puzzle piece that I was to fit in or stand out in ways that were good but wouldn't make me a target. Sometimes I was still a target. Sometimes I was bullied. Sometimes I bullied. Being the new kid meant I could always be a new person, and I always wanted to be someone else, someone important, someone powerful, some sort of combination of Storm and Sailor Moon. Television gave me a script I ached to recreate. New mysterious kid enters school and someone discovers their light and they learn to shine. Or new kid enters new school and sure, things are a little weird at first, but eventually they become part of a tight knit group of pals who hang out after school, talk on the phone, and get into mischief together. I thought I'd get the opportunity to star in my own show, but never did. Once we finally settled into one place by the time I was 12, I was transitioning from middle to high school and had no ground to stand on. There is no childhood friend who remembers who I used to be. There is no childhood home that has safeguarded my memories. There are blurs, and I am one of them.
Why does that make your heart race?
It's so honest, not just about my family. It's very honest about me.
That can be cruel.
Yeah, like really owning those parts of me. I was bullied and I bullied all these people that I was, that I still contain out of survival, out of instinct, out of what I've learned, out of the pieces that I picked up from other people because I thought that's how you're supposed to be, who you're supposed to be, or this will get me closer to that person and that equals safety somehow or community somehow. And it's a place that I think I'm still sifting through. And so it makes my heart race for sure.
I think about the power of admitting you've done wrong. You've been wrong. You've messed up. It almost takes away the pedestal that others might put you on. And when you're put on a pedestal, the fall can be quite painful, even if you didn't ask to be put on the pedestal. But in many ways, we do only show our best side, especially when we are front-facing, when we publish works that are personal, right? So I wonder, is there a part of you that wants to expose all of you so that people see you not only clearly and authentically, but so there's as little distortion as possible? Because the alternative of being like, oh, she's got her together is not a good look or is not a good feeling.
I definitely don't want to show all of me. Only because I think there's a sanctity of me having parts of me to myself. I'm not here to give myself fully away to everybody else. Also, not everybody deserves. But what I do want to introduce to other folks, or what I want to keep challenging, pushing against, even within myself, is the nuance, the gray, the in between, the yes and. I very much used to be a person that was like, somebody is either all good or all bad. When there was a time where I was deciding whether or not to cut off my father, and I was trying to categorize him as like all good, all bad, because it would then make that easier for me. And it was like, it took a lot of time to get to a place of like, no, there's a lot of nuance there. There was also good in there. It doesn't mean you need to forgive or keep this person in your life, but just acknowledging that is also really healing, and it makes me less judgmental about other people and towards myself, because what I'm doing to other people, I am doing to myself. And so it's about the yes and, especially about me. And I am trying to lean more into that I am all of the things, for better or worse.
How much of the pie chart of Zulynette do you think that the world has right, that you've put out there?
Well, I don't like pie like that.
A reference to one of the classic Zulynette poems of all time. Wait a minute. Do you have that handy?
I have the book in front of me. Would you like me to read this?
So bad.
Awesome. This is called I Don't Even Like Pie Like That. Humble is a pebble thrown at women who are mountains. Humble is a word yelled at a tornado, a verbal corset here to cinch us in and try to capture the wind. I'm bored with the word humble. Humble is a weaponized virtue that shatters against women who have become titanium confidence, who will no longer allow you to steal away, package, and try to sell us back our self-worth. Humble is a failed attempt to silence, to stifle, to shut down, to dim. You need to humble yourself. A slice of humble pie, anyone? For what? To choke on? To wash down with a side of ladylike and acting likable with a side of be nice? May my cockiness crow over your mornings of what we should be. How dare you tell the sun to not rise, to not shine? How dare you try to stunt the growth of an Eden? Humble is a well-meaning bullet aimed at femme brilliance. Humble does not exist on this menu. So you can take that slice of humble pie and stuff it.
So, are you going to answer my question?
How much do I think people have it right?
Or maybe a better way to ask the question is, how much do you think you've revealed about yourself?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know because I'm still revealing. I'm still revealing while simultaneously growing and still learning and looking back on the things that I've shared and said and looking at it from a new perspective sometimes. And so don't even know.
You can't even be confined to a pie chart. The question in and of itself is ludicrous.
But I do think, though, people still have a very binary way of looking at me. In the same way that we look at everybody, like we very much try to categorize people to make sense of the world. And when people look at me, and this has been said to me, there's things like, oh, you're so confident. I don't know how you get up on a stage in front of people and speak. And I'm like, I'm actually terrified every time I go up on a stage. I want to throw up and die. I need you to know that every time still. And there's a lot of friction with the yes and, with that gray, with that nuance, with it's both for me. There is the softness and there's also the machete. It is yes and, which is also why I named the book what it is because it is to honor both. Like, yes, I am becoming a soft woman. Yes, we are dropping some armor, but also there is a weapon in my hand. Relax.
That's poet and artist Zulynette. After the break, she and I dive deep into aging, past and future versions of ourselves, and affirmations.
Community is everything. Community will save us. Rest is resistance, but resistance is also resistance.
I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay tuned.
Con el machete, la luz del cielo siempre te alumbrará. Con el machete, si siempre humilde es la semilla. Con el machete, que la buena cosecha nos da. Con el machete, la extiende la mano al caído. Con el machete, o cuando sea tu enemigo. Con el machete,
This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf. We're continuing our conversation with poet and artist Zulynette, whose latest book, Becoming a Soft Woman with a Machete, explores what it means to live and create in the tension between softness and survival. So far, we've talked about prayer, truth-telling, and the power of laughter. And now we're diving into what comes after that, what it means to age, to grieve, to make peace with your past, and to imagine a conversation with the version of yourself you might become. Let's get back in the flow with Zulynette. Death is a prominent character in all of your work, and I think that you would agree with me when I say that the degree to which we talk about death is the degree to which we talk about life. And I don't necessarily want to know what you think happens after we die. I'm more interested in finding out what you hope happens after you die.
I think as of now, we join an ancestral plane that is very celestial, very pretty, very chill, very calm. I think we get the opportunity to then become ancestors for the rest of our family. I think our energy moves on in that sense. And if we are truly needed back here, then we will show up in some way, whether it is a person or a tree.
Or a coquille.
Yes. Yes.
You touch on this in your poem 37, looking back at when you were 27 and you dedicated yourself to expression. And in Becoming a Soft Woman with a Machete, I can see how you've grown. I wonder, when you look forward at Zulynette at 47, how does she feel different?
I think that leads me to another poem, which is Gray Privilege too.
I'd love to hear it.
I don't want to look 20 when I'm 50 or 30 when I'm 80. I want to look like a worn, cursed book of spells found in the middle of the woods that you're terrified to crack open, as you should be. I want to look like I know the secrets of the universe, and most of them are dad jokes. I want to look like I'll simultaneously tell you how very important you are, how precious you are, and you better straighten your tie when you're talking to me. I want to look like I earned my age and appreciate the privilege of getting old, an opportunity stolen from many. I want to look like I outlived my enemies and wear the smile lines I formed at their funerals with pride. I want to look partly inviting, vaguely threatening, and all wisdom. I want to look like a geriatric journal of embodied joy with jawbreaker confidence. I want to look like how I feel, which is, I don't give a I don't want to be of a certain age. I want to be certain I aged like a star running towards supernova status. I don't want to look 20s young, frail, and unsure. I want to look as rooted as a wild fig tree and still sway like a palm tree in the empty wind of anti-aging cream commercials and facelifts. I want to look like I hold conferences with those on the other side. I want to look like time itself comes to me for tarot readings and life comes to me to get her palm read. I want to look like Death and I have morning pomegranate tea on the balcony, and I keep telling her to postpone our more formal, inevitable appointment. And that, my friends, cannot be had with young age.
So that's 47.
Yeah.
What do you think she would have to say to you now?
I try to talk to her, actually. Keep trusting yourself and trust even harder.
That makes me think about the affirmations that you list in your book. Besides trust yourself, what ones come to you now as we near the end of our conversation, as we look at the whole world around us? What affirmations do you have for us?
Community is everything. Community will save us. Rest is resistance, but resistance is also resistance. And it is one that I wrote in the book, but it's one that is ringing more and more true, which is you're worth the time it takes.
This book contains multitudes. It shines a lot of light on what is confining us and what is hard, what is unjust, what is ironic, what is ignorant, what is cruel. And it also shines light on love and bravery and resilience and power. And I found myself as I was reading it thinking about all of these perspectives as they relate to freedom. And I wanted to ask what freedom felt like in you. And as soon as I thought of that question and wrote it down for this conversation, I read the poem Imagine, and I think I had my answer. I'd love to hear you read it.
Trade and bartering, no cash, no cards, just real currency. Free education, free housing. All neighborhoods are safe, and conflict calls upon wellness experts who reduce harm. You can see the world if you choose because borders no longer exist. Your health is taken care of by people who care, and your pain is always believed regardless of your skin color. Children only know how to play and be children. There's no war because there's nothing to war over. The sky is the bluest blue, and at night the only shooting we know comes from the stars we can now see. The accessible trees bear fruit and we eat off the land. We're taught skills to live in tandem with the seasons, with whatever corner of the earth we inhabit. We speak to the forest again, and we've earned our way back into having the animals call us kin. Everyone is as fluid or not as they want to be. Disability is accommodated, believed, and cared for. No one is disposable here. Oral traditions are as sacred as books, and languages are revitalized and protected. The arts are revered, and everyone sees themselves as the artists they've always been. The young outlive their parents. Questions and curiosity are encouraged. Our blood thrums with truth that unless all of us are free, none of us are free. The red thread glows among and between us all.
You're here. Well, Zulynette, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you.
Audacious is always lovingly produced by Jessica Severin DeMartinez, Meg Fitzgerald, and Robin Doyon Aitken at Connecticut Public Radio in Hartford. If you like this episode, and I know you obviously did, come on now, check out my first conversation with Zulynette to celebrate the release of her previous book, Seeing in the Dark. It was part of our Poets Around a Fire series, which also featured Andrew Dean Wright.
My friend, I do poetry because that is the space where God and man meet.
And Olusanya Bay.
To invoke the energy of all your beautiful faces, the magical ways in which you express the many faces, the facets, the multiplicity of this, all I see.
We'll have them linked for you at ctpublic.org/audacious, and make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a beat. Stay in touch with me on the socials at Kyone Wolf, and you can always send an email to audacious@ctpublic.org.